primary purpose of our homeowners association and nearly all others is to protect and enhance the property values of the homeowners. Ours was founded 25 years ago, and like most HOAs, is a nonprofit corporation, which is an actual business organization governed mainly by Idaho law. When each of us moved into this community, we agreed to follow the covenants, conditions, and restrictions, or CC&Rs. Many people may not realize it, but the CC&Rs are a legal contract. Along with the articles of incorporation and bylaws, they provide the framework for our association. Recently, this board decided to hire a professional manager to help by providing appropriate experience, structure, and training necessary to operate properly. This is especially important as we review some of the serious mistakes made by former HOA officers. Let's go back to 2006. Our original bylaws had been lost over the years, so the current board had an attorney draft new bylaws. They could have adopted those, but chose to have the members vote on them. For some reason, the homeowner, Jonathan Hennings, mounted a campaign to vote no on them. He argued at the meeting that we could have written them ourselves rather than pay an attorney, that we really didn't need them, and they gave the board too much power. But the truth is just the opposite. Idaho law defines the board's power. Bylaws can only add or detail responsibilities, not add authority. But Jonathan had already convinced enough people to vote no, so the bylaws were defeated, and Jonathan was elected to the board. From late 2006 through August of 2013, Jonathan Hennings had volunteered to be the secretary-treasurer of our HOA. During those years, he produced the annual financial reports. As you can see, they were extremely lacking in detail, with most of the expenses listed on one line as maintenance or expenditures. Myself and several homeowners had complained about these statements for years, and after the June 2013 annual meeting, demanded to examine the financial records to verify the income and expenses. After nearly 2 months of missing deadlines to produce the records, the current officers resigned and turned over a small collection of records which were seriously incomplete. When asked about the missing bank statements, check registers, receipts, etc., Keith Butler, the former president, stated that Jonathan had thrown away the records at the end of each year. He also told us that there were no minutes taken or kept of any meetings, no records of CC&R violations or liens or any association business, and they'd not even maintained the nonprofit registration since 2008. I began to reconstruct the records for 2012 and 2013, immediately discovered some suspicious entries. In February 2013, a deposit was made for $340 from a title company for dues and transfer fee, and on the same day, Jonathan cashed a check to himself for $340. In May, the exact same thing occurred. Jonathan also wrote checks to himself, Cabela's Visa, and Lowe's for an additional $1,068, no explanation or documentation. While many HOAs charge transfer fees when homes are sold, our CC&Rs don't allow it. This was a huge surprise to me and the other homeowners involved. Apparently, no one knew Jonathan was getting paid for his volunteer work, not even the other officers. And no one knew we were charging and collecting transfer fees. Our articles of incorporation strictly prohibit compensation, so this was obviously misuse of funds or embezzlement. None of this had been reported or disclosed, so a police investigation was initiated. Next, I expanded the record search for additional years. For a short while, the bank allowed me to request copies of a few statements or checks without charge, but eventually the bank refused to provide copies unless we paid for them. Each year I found more checks written by Jonathan to himself, totaling over $18,000, including checks to Home Depot, Lowe's, and Cabela's Visa. I also found that he didn't pay dues, adding another $438 to his compensation. I find it hard to believe that anyone thinks they can handle other people's money without being accountable and keeping records. The former president, Keith Butler, and vice president, Kevin O'Rourke, claimed that they never approved of any of the compensation to Jonathan and they were not even aware of it. Our attorney questioned them and they willingly signed statements to that effect. Some of Keith's statements are extremely critical of Jonathan's actions. For example, to the best of my knowledge, each person serving on the board with me at all times was an unpaid volunteer. The board of directors did not authorize the association to pay compensation to Jonathan Hennings or to hire him for any paid work. Jonathan Hennings never disclosed to the board that he was compensating himself for alleged services provided to the association. The board did not vote to or authorize Jonathan Hennings to dispose of any financial records. The board of directors did not authorize anyone to charge transfer fees on behalf of the association. A criminal case like this is difficult to prosecute against a non-professional unless the person confesses or a witness can testify that the person admitted he knew it was wrong. And since the statute of limitations had expired on about 80% of the money involved, prosecution was declined. The prosecutor stated that we should have been watching and never let this go on this long. One person created this huge mess. More than $19,000 of improper compensation and expenses. $558 to the bank for copies. Over 300 hours of gathering, compiling, and analyzing the data. Without proper controls and people who understand fiduciary responsibility, it could happen again. Managers provide substantial relief to the board and officers' workload. Some of the biggest help comes from training new board members, planning budgets, billing, providing financial reports, tax preparation, taking minutes of meetings, creating newsletters, coordinating and supervising maintenance of common areas, collecting dues, filing liens, and enforcing the CC&Rs. Our HOA is not here to just collect dues and maintain the common area landscaping. The HOA should be considered a steward, responsible for the value of our biggest assets, our homes. So even though the assets of the association are small, the value of all our homes is probably $10 million or more. That makes the job of the HOA enormous and certainly worthy of serious professional guidance for the volunteers who serve on the board.